Ken Burns recently was on the Smartless podcast. He's the historian and documentary filmmaker, probably most famous for his piece on the Civil War, but he did brilliant work on the Great Depression, on World War II, and a few other topics. And in fact, he comes out and he says there were three great crises before this: the Civil War, the Great Depression, and World War II. And then he says this current era, this COVID crisis, this Trump crisis, these are my phrases, not his. He said this is equal to it. And then he quotes Abraham Lincoln. This is an 1838 speech that he gave to a group in Springfield, Illinois. And what he was talking about was the growing tension between the oligarchs in the South, who had basically ended democracy by 1838. And you can read this whole history in my book on oligarchy, but basically where this started was the cotton gin. Eli Whitney invented the cotton gin in the late 1790s, but he didn't market it. He didn't get it to market until around 1810. And by the end of the 1820s, the large cotton operations in the South, the large plantations in the South, that could afford a cotton gin, because one cotton gin could do the work of 50 enslaved people in terms of cleaning cotton, which is the most labor-intensive part, second only to picking the cotton, of producing cotton. And so what happened was those plantations that could afford a cotton gin suddenly became massively more productive and thus massively more profitable than the smaller family farms that were growing cotton. And as a result, not only did the price of cotton go down, which wiped out a lot of the small family farms, but all this money allowed these giant plantations to buy up all those small family farms, turn the former farmers into sharecroppers, and basically turned the South. It was this massive consolidation throughout the 1820s and early 1830s of a new oligarchic class in the South. So that by the time of the Civil War, the South was ruled by about 1,000 families. It was a true oligarchy. There was still democracy in the North, but in the South, the elections were run by the oligarchs. They would literally throw out ballots that they didn't want. They elected themselves and their friends and neighbors. I mean, it was no longer a democracy. And by 1838, when Abraham Lincoln gave this speech, this tension was becoming between the North and the South, between the oligarchs in the South, who did not believe in democracy and very much wanted to maintain slavery, and the North, which was opposed to slavery and was practicing democracy. This split was becoming really obvious, and so thus Abraham Lincoln gave this speech. He said, "From whence shall we expect the approach of danger? Shall some transatlantic military giant step the earth and crush us at a blow? Never. All the armies of Europe, Asia, and Africa could not by force take a drink from the Ohio River or make a track on the Blue Ridge in the trail of 1,000 years. No," Abraham Lincoln said, "if destruction be our lot, we must ourselves be its author and finisher. As a nation of free men, we will live forever or die by suicide." And Ken Burns says America today is looking down the muzzle of that gun. And that's how bad he says it is. And now we discover that there, just like there was in 1838, with the rise of the oligarchy and the end of democracy in the American South, we're seeing the same folks or the same kind of mentality funding what's going on. The headline over at by John Wright, a piece over at Raw Story, revealed Charlottesville neo-Nazi organizers were paid to make hate a full-time job. And they're telling, what brought this out is that there was a story against one of the so-called Unite the Right was this rally with the tiki torches. Jews will not replace us. You will not replace us. Black people will not replace us. And it's where Heather Heyer was murdered by these guys, and a number of other people were injured. And one of their major organizers, Elliot Klein, is being sued. And as part of the lawsuit, they got discovery, and the discovery included things like his text messages. And during the rally planning process, Klein texted, "Now that this is my full-time job, I'll be much more available to you." What's this? Running white supremacy promotion stuff. He was, the Daily Beast reported Tuesday that a lawsuit filed by the victims of the attack, which left one dead and several injured, shows that at least one key Unite the Right organizer, this guy Elliot Klein, was about to join the payroll as a full-time employee of one of the groups where he would be making, quote, good money. He describes an upcoming well-paid job with the white supremacist group Identity Europa. He says, "I'm about to double down in the movement harder than I already have. It's no secret I'm taking over Identity Europa from Nathan, and I'm going to be paid from private donors some good money." Another guy, he took this over from Nathan D'Amigo, who 2 weeks after the rally, in another text message, notorious white supremacist Richard Spencer told Klein, "Also, we're going to pay you." So there's apparently big money behind the white supremacist movement in the United States, just like there was big money behind the oligarchs in the South. And now, speaking of big money, billionaire Eric Trump is going to give the keynote speech next month at an anti-vax conference. This started out as it's called Truth About Cancer Live. But it's become basically anti-vaccine and white supremacy and stuff like that. It's marking the latest alliance between the Trump family and the GOP's fringiest elements. It's the brainchild of Ty and Charlene Bollinger, two major promoters of anti-vaccine disinformation. I'm reading from the Daily Beast, from this piece by Kelly Weil, who have made tens of millions of dollars, according to Weil, promoting both alternative health cures for cancer and vaccine fears. They sell a $200 video series promoting vaccine fear-mongering on their website. In posts on Telegram, the Bollingers have called the vaccine a, quote, shot of poison and the COVID kill shot. And so here we've got this, they're pushing 9/11 truth conspiracies, chemtrail conspiracies. And the tickets, by the way, vary from $197 to $997. They promise the event will reveal the truth about vaccines. And their featured speaker, Eric Trump. Roger Stone's going to give a speech, too. So it's like you've got white supremacists, you've got professional agitators, essentially, running the white supremacist agenda. You've got professional vaccine deniers and natural remedy hustlers who are denying science. And this is just the tip of it. I guarantee you, if you were to ask them about climate science or any of these other sciences, they would probably be in the denial of that. You've got billionaires like Eric Trump showing up and supporting them. And meanwhile, the Supreme Court has just announced that they're going to on December 1st, I think is the date. Yeah, December 1st, they're going to hear arguments in Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health, this Mississippi abortion case that says that, see, right now, pre-viability, before an ovum or a zygote or a fetus is viable, before it can survive outside the womb, it's considered part of her body and it's her decision if she's going to abort it or not. Post-viability, once it's viable, once it can survive outside the womb, it's considered a human being, and that's heavily, heavily regulated and frankly, criminalized. Well, this case says that it should be criminal for a woman to abort a fetus or a zygote or an ovum at any stage of pregnancy, and there's no exception for rape or incest. And this is going before the Supreme Court on December 1st. And this is kind of all one thing in my mind. It's like the rise of the so-called religious right, who are really, they're claiming Jesus, but they're spitting in his face. If you read the Sermon on the Mount and read Matthew 25, you want to understand Christianity, just read those two things. And these have nothing to do with the words of Jesus. And then you've got Ken Paxton, who's under FBI investigation and a couple of indictments for various crimes He's the Attorney General of Texas. He's running for re-election. And so he's now suing the Biden administration, saying that the Equal Opportunity Commission guidelines, the EEOC guidelines, that say that trans people should be able to use the bathroom of their gender choice, or their, I think that's the proper phrase. The restrooms that correspond to their gender identity. That's the part, forgive me, that's the phrase. He says, that puts women and children at risk. Oh my God. Have these guys no shame? Is there no limit to what they will do and what they will say? Is Ken Burns right? Is America on the cusp of a civil war? I mean, are these guys, do they have enough power and a large enough microphone like the oligarchs in the South did in the 1850s, that they can actually flip America into something that resembles a civil war? Or are they just a crazed fringe group that, frankly, is starting to go down in flames and diminish?
Calculation of